Hey everybody, welcome back to Mama Fin's Kitchen, and you're cooking with Mama Fin. So if you're anything like us, we are about 30, 50, 12, who knows how many days into COVID-19 in our stay-at-home order here in Kansas. But if you're anything like the Finsons, you probably have some bananas that are very, very ripe sitting on your counter. So I wanted to use those up. So tonight we're going to be making a banana bread, but we're going to do it with a little bit of a twist because we're going to make it in our electric pressure cooker. So R2D2 and I here are going to teach you how to make pressure cooker banana bread. So follow along, and thanks for joining me again on YouTube, and we'll get started. So first thing we want to do is make sure that you mash up 3 medium bananas. I've already mashed 2, as you can see right here, but then we want to do a third one. So we're going to mash up this banana. You can tell he's super duper ripe, very squishy. And the riper the banana, the better it is for banana bread. So we're just going to mash him with a fork, and then we'll just set this aside, and we'll use it later as we're mixing up our banana bread. So the best thing that you really absolutely need for banana bread is really ripe bananas. The rest of the stuff you probably already have in your pantry. They're very common ingredients. So we're going to set our bananas aside for right now. The other things that you're going to need is you're going to need half a cup of butter. I like to use unsalted butter for my baking, just because I like to control the salt myself. So you need half a cup of butter, which is 1 stick, and I want you to make sure that it's softened to room temperature, nice and soft, okay? You're going to need 1 cup of sugar, 2 large eggs, also at room temperature. So I set these out earlier this afternoon so they could come up to room temperature. So nice and warm, okay? 2 eggs, and then large eggs. And then you want the bananas. And then we'll need 2 cups of flour. You'll need 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. You'll need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then you're gonna need 2 teaspoons of vanilla or vanilla bean paste, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you want 1 to 2 teaspoons of rum flavoring. We'll also talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so those are the ingredients that we're gonna need, so let's get started. First things first, we want to mix together in a medium bowl, or like this handy dandy Pyrex pitcher that I love so much. We wanna mix this together. We're going to put together the butter, the sugar, and the eggs, and we're gonna cream that together. Okay, so you can tell that that is super duper soft. So we're going to put that in. We're going to measure out our sugar. So we need 1 cup of sugar. Into the bowl. And then we want to put in our eggs. So if you have farm eggs, I want you to make sure that you crack those into a bowl separately, just in case. Always crack your eggs off into a separate bowl, just in case there's any blood in an egg or anything like that, or anything. And I'm lucky to have farm fresh eggs. So, got a little shell there, so we'll just pull that right out. Down into the mix he goes. We're gonna cream that together with just a hand mixer, okay? Doesn't take but about 2 shakes to get that mixed together. Make sure that you take a rubber spatula and scrape down the side. Just make sure that you get all of that incorporated together. But we want to make sure that it turns a nice little light yellow color. See that in there? It's a beautiful, just kind of light yellow. We want to make sure that we've got all the sugar incorporated. And then we're going to add into this, we're going to put in our vanilla. You can use vanilla bean paste. This is a really kind of concentrated vanilla. It's almost like a gel. Let me show you what it looks like. It's a concentrated kind of almost gelatinous, like that. But you can see those beautiful specks of vanilla beans down in there. If I get it back where you can focus. But you can see the beautiful specks of vanilla from the vanilla beans. You can use a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste if you like. 2 teaspoons actually. We're gonna put a little bit of vanilla bean paste in, but as you know, I love to support local businesses. And locally in Kansas City, we have a company that makes vanilla. And so I'm gonna use Vein Vanilla tonight. This one happens to be a Mexican vanilla that's extracted in Kentucky bourbon. And I absolutely adore it. It's wonderful, adds great flavor. And because they make everything with true vanilla beans, down inside their bottles, the vanilla beans are actually down inside that bottle. And so you get the beautiful specks of vanilla bean as well in their vanilla. So we're gonna put 2 teaspoons of vanilla down in here. And what you can see down in there is you can see those beautiful specks of vanilla bean down inside as well. Okay. Love that. Love the beautiful vanilla bean specks as well as the beautiful vanilla flavor with that Kentucky bourbon. And we get to support somebody local, especially in this time of crisis. It's especially important that we help all of our local businesses. Okay, so we've got our vanilla in, and we've got our sugar, we've got our eggs and our butter, and then we want to put in some rum flavoring. Let me get that out of my cabinet. I forgot it a minute ago. This just adds just a little bit more depth of flavor. You can buy rum flavoring at the grocery store, and you just want rum flavoring, and we're going to put about 2 teaspoons of it in as well. It smells wonderful along with that vanilla. It's just going to add an extra depthness to your banana bread, and you know, it kind of gives almost that Bananas Foster feeling to it, because if you are like me, I love Bananas Foster. And Bananas Foster, you always use, when you flambe it, you use rum or something like that. So bananas and rum just seem to really go together really well. Okay, so we've got all that in there together. We want to put in our dry ingredients. So you're going to need half a teaspoon of salt. That we're going to mix in. And then we want 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm sorry, not baking powder, baking soda. Good old Arm & Hammer baking soda. We're gonna put in. So 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Down into the mix. Before we put the flour in, we want to go ahead and put in our bananas. So right now you can see this batter that we're kind of putting together. So we're going to get our bananas. We're going to scrape those in. Gooey, gooey banana deliciousness. Stir those in. Smells really delicious and banana-y. Starting to look something like that. Okay. Now we're going to put in our flour. So we want to measure out 2 cups of flour. And as always, I want you to not scoop your flour. I want you to spoon it into your cup so that you don't get more flour than you intend. So there's 1 cup. And 2 cups. We're just going to stir that in. I think one of the very first breads I ever learned how to make was banana bread back in home economics and 4-H back when I was really young. But we learned how to make quick breads in home economics, what it was called back then, in junior high. And how far we've come since then, but and 4-H and all the different wonderful things that I used to make in cooking classes in 4-H as a little girl from the very young elementary school age, 4-H was a fantastic part of my life. So we've got our flour mixed in. And you don't want to over mix this, it's just a quick bread. So looks something like that. It's fairly thick. As you can see, it's a fairly thick kind of batter, okay? So we've got our batter, and you just want to stir that flour in just until it's combined. Just don't over mix that, okay? All right, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to get our pan ready. So for this particular bread, we're gonna use a bundt pan that fits down inside of our pressure cooker. This is a half-size bundt pan, which means it's 6 cups. A standard bundt pan is 12 cups. So this one is 6 cups, and it fits just perfectly down into your pressure cooker. And what I want you to see is, so this is an insert that goes down into a pressure cooker that usually sits down inside the machine. So this insert, this pan fits just perfectly down inside this insert, okay? But what you'll also notice is there's not a lot of room around the outside of that pan. So we're gonna put our batter into this. We wanna prepare the pan first. So we wanna spray it with some non-stick spray. And I like to use the kind for this that has the flour built in. So something like a Baker's Joy, or Pam has one now that has flour built into it too. Just give that a good spray. And then we're just gonna spoon our batter down into here. It's also why this particular Pyrex is super helpful, because you can just take it right and pour it right from the spout. Makes it super easy. Plus you have the handle to hold on to. You're not trying to balance a bowl in your hand while you're scooping this in. Scrape all that goodness out of the pitcher. And yes, right off of there. And then just smooth out the top with your spatula so you get it somewhat level. He's not going to be perfectly level, but somewhat level. If I wasn't on film, I'd probably totally lick my finger if it was from my husband and I. And you can too at home. No one will judge you, and we all do it. And we all lick the beater too. So, but because y'all are watching, I won't do that. So, the next thing that we want to do is we want to put a paper towel loosely over the top of this pan, just like that, okay? Loosely right over the top. And then I want you to cover it with a piece of aluminum foil. And just wrap that down tightly around the sides. And you're thinking to yourself, now what in the heck is she doing that for? Well, the reason that we're going to do that is we do not want the moisture from our pressure cooker, the moist heat that's going to be used to cook this, we don't want that to settle on top of our bread and make it soggy, okay? And that paper towel that's in between that layer will help to absorb any moisture that gets caught, okay? So we have our pan now. Now, like we said earlier, if you were to put that down inside of this insert, it fits, but now when it's hot, after it's finished cooking, you wouldn't be able to get it out of there. So what we need to do is we need to make a sling to be able to put it in and out, okay? So I want you to go to your pantry. You can, if you don't have a sling, you can make one. I want you to take a big piece of aluminum foil, and then I just want you to fold it in half. Doesn't have to be exact. And then in half again. This one is extra wide, so you might have to do it in thirds. But you just fold it so you have something like that, okay? And then you're gonna use that to put your pan on like this, and then that way you can lift it up inside, up and down, right out of that insert. So once it's hot and once it has cooked, you will then be able to lift it right in and out of your insert, okay? Now, if you have one, they make them, OXO makes a silicone version, looks something like this. So you can absolutely use that too. You would sit your pan on the insert just like that, on the sling, then it hooks together, and you can do the same thing. It just lifts right in and out. The other thing you can do if you want, you can buy a sheet of food grade silicone. You can buy it on Amazon, and then just cut you a strip. That's what I did before OXO started making these. I got tired of using aluminum foil all the time, so I just bought myself a sheet of, Alexa, stop playing. I don't know why she decided to play. But anyway, we don't need her to play right now. Anyway, so we're going to, you can use a piece of silicone just like this. Okay, you can cut that and cut it to size with no problem and use it too. So let's talk about your electric pressure cooker for just a second. Okay, as I mentioned to you, I called him R2D2. Well, that's lovingly after my friend Chef Allie, who I learned a lot about pressure cooking from when I first started. She calls her pressure cooker R2D2. Well, lo and behold, last fall, Williams-Sonoma came out with a special edition of Instant Pots in honor of the Star Wars movies that were coming out. And it is R2D2. So I told my husband, I said, you know I'm going to buy one of those. So of course I did. And he's just darling. So he's super cute. Let's move the lid. Super cute. Looks just like R2D2, but that's going to be, that's the Instant Pot that we're going to be using. So to cook this, I want to make sure that you put your insert into the pot. Okay, the last thing we want to do is put water down inside of our Instant Pot down inside the machine without there being any insert in here. You will fry your machine, so please don't do that. Make sure the insert is in here. And then we're going to put 1.5 cups of water down in this insert. Just like so. And then I want you to grab the trivet that came with it, and I want you to set that down inside as well. This is what we look like. We have our trivet down inside, as well as the water, and that's what we look like right now, okay? The next thing we need to do is put our pan right down inside here. So we're just gonna lower him right down inside, and we're gonna put our lid on. And you noticed earlier, there's holes in this handle, and you noticed that I had the lid sitting there. That little hole is meant for this edge. So when your lid is not in use, if your Instant Pot has the holes in the handle, it's to hold your lid. So just a little tidbit, tip, and trick there. So lock the lid in place, and then be sure to take, and on the lid, there's a dial. Make sure that you turn it to where it is on sealing. We want to make sure that he's in the position to seal. So make sure you put that on sealing, lock him in place, and then we are going to set him to high pressure. We want to cook him at high pressure for 58 minutes. Okay, so what we'll do is we push pressure cook on this particular version, and then we're going to hit the plus button up until it hits 58 minutes. Okay, then once you hit 58 minutes, all you do is just let him sit here. Okay, just let it sit here. It will process that you want to cook, and now it goes to on. So right now it's going to build pressure inside of this machine. While it's building pressure, it's just going to sit here and it's just going to say on. Okay, so we're going to let it sit here and come to pressure. It should take it probably 5 minutes or so to heat that water and build up enough steam and pressure inside to lock it down until it seals in place. Behind the scenes for you, I just want to let you know that I normally have a helper that sits here with me in the kitchen. Bohannon, sit. This is Bohannon. He's my helper. He keeps Mama company. All right, y'all. So, I don't know that you can hear it very well, maybe, but our pressure cooker is starting to come up to pressure. And one thing that you can hear it, and you can also see some of the steam starting to come out. You can probably see a little bit of steam coming out the top of that pressure cooker. And as you can see, we're set on sealing right here. And you can tell that it just got totally quiet. That means that it sealed off. This little indicator popped up, and it has now sealed. And our lid is completely locked into place. Okay, so that means he's sealed. And now, from the front of the machine, it still says on, but here in just a minute or so, once it registers to the machine that it is locked and in place, it will go from being on to our countdown of our time for cooking. So it will move from the on to 58 minutes, just like that. So now it will start cooking, and so it will be in there for 58 minutes. Once it's done cooking, I'll come back and I'll show you exactly what we want to do next. A couple of things about your pressure cooker. What you can see is that right now there is no steam coming out of the top of that. There might be a little whisper every once in a while, but honestly there's very little steam coming out of there. That means it has sealed properly and that it's in a good position and it's a good place. If there was a lot of steam coming out of this area, then that means that something is wrong, okay? The other part is if there's any steam coming out from around the edges, that also means that there's something wrong. In those cases, you would want to release the pressure, open it up, and figure out what is going on inside that would cause it not to pressurize properly. The other part is that it should be very, very quiet, just like it is right now. So I'm going to stop talking for just a second so you can hear that there's really no sound coming from it. That's normal. You might have just a little tick every once in a while that might go click, click, the way that metal does when it expands and contracts. So you might hear that on occasion, but really it should be quiet just like this is. So while we're waiting on our bread to cook in R2D2 over here, I want to talk to you just a little bit about your pressure cooker itself. Some tips and tricks on using an electronic pressure cooker. So like I said, he's over here cooking. He's just going to sit here and do his thing. This is another version of an Instant Pot. This happens to be the Ultra. Her name in our family is Audrey, too, after the plant in Little Shop of Horrors, of what all was very famous for saying, "Feed me, Seymour, feed me, Crowborn." So this is also by Instant Pot. The parts and pieces are all very similar when you start getting between machines and versions, and they all just do slightly different numbers of functions, and they may look a little bit different. This one's very high-tech because he's digital, but their parts and pieces are all very similar. And if you have a different brand, your parts and pieces are also going to be very similar. So on your Instant Pot, you have the machine itself, the base of the machine. The insert, as we mentioned, it comes out. You will have a cord, the electrical cord. On a lot of the Instant Pots, it's removable. It plugs in and out. There are a couple of versions where it does not do that. So you may have one that it is fixed and it's just always on. Otherwise, you have them where they come in and out, where you plug it in and out to the machine. Down inside the machine are the electronics. So the electronics are down here in the base section, but there's a little button right here in the center that when you put the insert into, that presses down on that button, and that is what activates the electronics inside. So when we put our insert in, that's why we always say make sure your insert is in, because you don't want to pour water down into that machine and ruin those electronics. Okay, so then you've got, really the only other part and piece is the lid. And the lids for the Instant Pot all look very, very similar. They might look just a tad bit different up here on the top part, but it is just a lid. It twists on and off onto your machine. And the inside, they all look very similar. There's really not a lot going on. There's a piece right here. This is a rubber gasket. It pulls right out. Super easy, okay? But this is one of the areas that could cause you problems. If you've had steam escaping from your machine, like we talked about earlier, if there's steam coming out the top of one of these sections or around the sides, check this gasket. On the gasket, there's a little groove right here, okay? That groove, if you get a food particle stuck in there, then it will cause it not to come to pressure or not pressurize correctly. So that's one thing to check. If you take your lid off, when you release the pressure, you can take the lid off and check and make sure there's no food particles in that gasket. But it's real easy to take in and out. There is a wire right here. And all you do is, when you want to put it back in, just push it underneath that wire. Okay, all the way around. Just like that. And that wire sits into that groove. Just make sure you get it all the way in there. Okay, and that is sitting in that groove. You see how it sits in that groove? Super easy. The other part is there's a little catch basket right here, and it pops off. You can pop that off. If you get a food particle stuck inside of here, it can also cause you not to come to pressure. So that's another thing to check. Okay, and that just pops right off and it pops right back on. Okay. The other part that is that comes off on your machine is this pressure valve. It just pops right off at the top and it pops right back on. Okay. If you're traveling with your machine with nothing in it, like you're going to take it to a friend's house and cook together or something like that, I would recommend, if your cord is removable, and that I would take it off and put it inside of your machine so that you don't lose it on the way to your friend's house. And also the same thing with this pressure valve. Take this off and put it down inside your machine, because if you lose this, if it happens to fall off like in your trunk or in the cargo area of your SUV, and you happen to lose it, your machine will not work and it will not function. So make sure you don't lose this. Keep him nice and safe and protected, okay? So those are just a few little troubleshooting things for you, and parts and pieces to your machine. So we're gonna continue to let our bread cook. We have 52 minutes left, and you can tell when I moved that I jiggled that pressure valve, and so he made a little noise. That's normal. If you happen to jiggle him, it'll make that noise. Don't worry about it. But you notice that he went back quiet again, and that's what you want. Okay, so we'll be back when we get very, very close to being done and being after 52 minutes. All right, kids, we're just about done. We have 3 minutes left on our pressure cooker. And as you can tell, it's still very quiet. He's sitting here just chilling, cooking away. When this 3 minutes is up, we're not gonna do anything, okay? When it hits 0, we're gonna leave it. And we're gonna let it go into a natural release. So that means we're gonna not touch the machine. When it hits 0, we're just gonna let it sit there and release pressure naturally on its own. And I want you to let it naturally release for 10 minutes. In order to do that, it will turn to look a little bit different here on the front. So we'll come back in 3 minutes and I'll show you exactly what that looks like so that you know when your machine is done cooking on an Instant Pot and the difference. So like right now you can see that this says 0003. That means it has 3 minutes left in its cook time. So we'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. We're sitting on 1 minute right here, as you can see. And in that, once this hits 0, it's gonna beep and it's gonna let us know that it's done cooking. So as you can tell, right now it says 0001. And it's been counting down from our 58 minutes. So as soon as this hits 0000, you will hear it beep, and then you will see an L come here in the front. That lets you know that the cook time is done and it's now in its keep warm mode. Because you can see this little light is on right here that says keep warm. So once it hits 0, it will beep, and then it will put an L right here in the front. And that L lets you know that it's in keep warm, and then it will start, instead of counting down, it will start counting upwards. And that L lets you know how long that it has been sitting there. There's our beep. So we're now done, and you can see it put an L right here. So now the cook time is actually done. It's no longer building pressure or maintaining pressure inside here. The actual cooking part and the machine is done doing that. So it's no longer going to build pressure inside here. It's now going to just sit and it's going to release pressure. It will vent out pressure through the top here, through the valve and through the pin, and it will release pressure on its own. We want to let that sit here for 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait, and we're going to wait until this says 10 right here. So as it's sitting here, now we know that it's done cooking because it has this L. It's in keep warm mode, and it's going to start now, instead of counting down, it's going to count up. So it will, here in just a minute, once a minute has passed, this 0 will turn to a 1. That lets us know that that has been sitting there for 1 minute. And we want to go until it hits 10 so that we know that it's been 10 minutes. Okay? So once it has been there for 10 minutes, we're going to come back and we'll do the finishing steps. And you can see now it's been here 1 minute. So now you see that it went from 0 to 1. Okay, so in 9 minutes, we're going to come back and we'll do the next step. Okay, kids, so we are now sitting right here on 9 minutes. And you can see right here, it says 9 minutes. So once this hits 10, we're going to take this dial. We're going to take our, not really a dial, but the pressure lever. We're going to move it from sealing, where it's at right now, over here to venting. And we're going to vent whatever pressure is left inside of the machine. So once we hit 10 minutes, which we're very close because we're sitting on 9 right now, we're going to do that. As you can see, this lid is still completely locked into place. That's one of the safety features. When this is under full pressure, you cannot open this machine. We just hit 10 minutes, so we're going to flip this lever right here, and we're going to release any pressure that's left in this machine. So when you do that, I want you to pull it out away from your cabinets. On the off chance that there's a lot of steam in here, you don't want to steam the facings of your cabinets, okay? So pull that out just a little bit, angling, and you can tell there's still pressure in there. But we're going to turn this pressure gauge to venting, and we're going to vent whatever pressure is left, okay? So there's not a tremendous amount of steam coming out of here, but there is some. You can see it a little bit. I mean, it's warm, but it's not tremendously hot. So there's a little bit of pressure left in there, but not a tremendous amount. And we're going to wait until that little silver pin right there drops. And when that pin drops, then that means that we're going to be able to open our lid. Okay, so it will drop here in just, and you can see the lid is starting to loosen. And see, you saw that little pin drop right there? And then that means we can open this lid. Once that little pin drops down, we can open the lid. Be very, very careful when you go to open this lid because you can see that steam's coming out. There will also be moisture up inside this lid. So I want you to turn the lid and tip it down inside there so that it drips any of that hot liquid from the lid down into the pan and not running down your arm. If that runs down your arm, it is extremely hot and it will burn you. This is a really great time to use that little notch to hold your lid. Okay? Now then, we're going to take our pan out using our sling. That silicone is hot, so either grab yourself a towel. You can probably grab it, if you have Teflon hands like I do, you can grab it by hand, or you can grab a towel or a pot holder and pull that out. Let any of the moisture drip off just to make sure here real quick. Take that out, and then I've got a cooling rack sitting right here that sling off. Be careful, this pan is very, very hot. So we're going to take the sling off, set him aside, and then our foil is also really hot. So be careful, don't burn yourself. And then we're going to pull the paper towel off, and you can see it absorbed quite a bit of moisture from down underneath there. Part of it is dry, but part of it is not. So it has absorbed some of that moisture while cooking. Oh, this, y'all, is beautiful. I want you to see this beautiful. I'm going to use the towel because this pan is flaming hot. I mean, look at that. Fantastic. I mean, beautiful, golden deliciousness right out of your pressure cooker. So I'm going to let this sit here for just a few minutes and cool just a little bit before I take him out of the pan. So we're going to let him sit for about 5 to 10 minutes just to cool off just a little bit before we release him from the pan. So we'll come back in just a few minutes and we'll release him. All right, so we've let him sit here for about 5 minutes or so. And I want to now invert it onto a serving platter. This is just a cake plate. We're going to set that right on top, and we're going to flip him over and invert him out. He's still a little warm, so I'm going to use a towel just to help me. And we're just going to flip him over super fast, just like that. And he's still pretty warm. I love warm banana bread with some butter on it. So we're just going to carefully lift that off. Boom. I mean, look at that, y'all. Beautiful. I'm gonna grab a knife and some butter and get ourselves a slice of it real quick. I mean, it's golden, delicious. It browned beautifully in that pressure cooker. So we're gonna cut a beautiful little slice here. You can see the steam rolling off. Now, my dad would tell you that banana bread is not banana bread unless you put nuts in it, particularly black walnuts. I did not put any nuts in this tonight. I told him, I said, it's only banana nut bread if you put nuts in it. And right down tonight, it's just going to be banana bread because there ain't no nuts in it. But you can totally put nuts in it, pecans, walnuts, black walnuts, English walnuts. But he would tell you that black walnuts are the thing that you should actually put into banana bread. The other thing that I do love to put in sometimes is the little mini chocolate chips that I do, like a banana bread with mini chocolate chips. Delicious. But if you have allergies or things like that in your family and you don't want to do nuts, you do just like we did tonight with no nuts. But I am going to put a little butter on this, and it's still so warm and delicious. It's just going to melt this butter beautifully right in. I mean, look at that bread, y'all. I mean, it is delicious. I mean, fantastic. A little bit of butter. Okay, maybe a whole lot of butter. Melting right in there. And I mean, you're talking comfort food at its finest. And when you're COVID confined, is there anything better? Great banana flavor. You can taste just a hint of that rum flavoring that we put in and the beautiful vanilla. Fantastic. Bananas give it a nice moisture content. It's really fantastic. I thank y'all for joining me in Mama Fin's kitchen. It's been great having you again. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of one another, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.